Hey everyone, welcome to Working Forward. I'm Izzy Cannell.
And I'm Brad Golden. We're the Workplace Insights and Advisory team at VergeSense and your co-hosts of Working Forward. If you're new here, this is where we swap stories and ideas with people who are shaping what the workplace looks like next. Working Forward unites the global workplace community through inspiring conversations with the people driving change by sharing ideas you can act on today and revisit whenever you need a spark.
Today we're hanging out with VergeSense co-founders Dan Ryan, Kelby Green. We're going to hear all the hot takes, the hard truths, learn from years building in the trenches, your predictions about what the future holds for real estate and workplace decisions.
I am super excited for this one. We're ready to debate some serious hot takes and cut through the hype so you can leave with actionable steps and ideas to test out in your workplaces.
These two are really excited to get into it today. Let's get going. Dan and Kelby, let's start with a quick intro. How did you two meet and start working together? Tell us a little bit about the story up to today.
I'll let Dan take it, but the nice thing is that only one of us has to tell it because we've literally been doing the same thing together forever. So Dan, you take it.
Yeah, we'll dive right. Yeah, so as Kelby knows, we sometimes refer to each other as our work spouses. So Kelby and I have worked together for a long time. We originally met. Our first job out of college was at Bloomberg, and Kelby and I both worked as software engineers there. Bloomberg used to have a program. This is before coding boot camp was a thing where they basically just take folks with engineering degrees directly out of college and teach them how to program. And so we met there, and the relationship has just blossomed ever since. Kelby and I, before VergeSense, we worked on another company in the built environment. That company was called BiteLight. It was kind of a similar idea as VergeSense. We were using sensing technology to try to understand kind of how people flow through space. We did that company for a while. It was ultimately acquired back in 2015 by Acuity Brands Lighting. And then rolled into Acuity's IoT business. And then we teamed up in 2017 to start VergeSense. And I always say that, when we started the company, there was really gigantic grand vision. We were just real big believers in the ability and the importance of just collecting data about how people move through space. We just felt that this data set would be incredibly valuable, that would sort of change how buildings are designed, how they operate, et cetera. But when we started the company, we really didn't have any particular market that we wanted to go after. We thought this could be a product that's useful for retail stores or warehouses, that sort of thing. But ultimately, we started to get traction pretty early on within workplace, which I always thought was kind of weird. We didn't totally understand why people cared so much about this data, about how kind of humans flow through space. We always just felt like the office is this environment you just show up to, and the conference room systems work, and there's coffee. I feel there's all this stuff that just automatically happens that people sort of take for granted if you're not on the side of actually running and operating those buildings. But then over the years, obviously, we've really recognized the value of that data set, and it's been quite a journey. 8 years. Is it 8 years? How many years?
It's been 8 years, yeah, over 8 years now, yeah. No, I remember when we were sort of picking the market, and as a company, as you mentioned, we were very technology heavy. It was we have a technology, we're looking for a way to apply it, which is never ever a place you want to be as a company, right? You want to have
not a great strategy, no,
as early as possible. It's you're feeling around. This is super important. We got to make a decision, and it was kind of obvious, right? I don't remember exactly how we fell into the corporate office environment, but it was one or two engagements with folks that were stakeholders of these companies. It was instantly obvious these guys were starved for the data. It was a very clear pull. We didn't search around in the dark for a while. It was the first time we kind of latched on this market. We're this is the one, we got to commit to it. So at least that was a relatively smooth decision early on.
Nice. For listeners that aren't maybe as familiar with our product, or they don't use VergeSense every day, what are kind of the big pivot points of what VergeSense did over the years, and what's the big bet right now?
Yeah, so it started with just collecting this data set, collecting data about how people move through space. Prior to VergeSense, companies have been trying to solve that problem in a number of different ways, starting with people with clipboards and iPads, which still happens a lot today. Kind of
I used to do that, Dan.
I've done it before.
You do it, yeah. You do still do it, right? So
to some extent,
it is still pretty shocking. I think it speaks to Obviously real estate is this, enormous asset class, but still so antiquated and so outdated, even today until how it's operating. Obviously that's changing a lot, but there's such a huge opportunity ahead to layer in more technology there. But anyways, so we started with how do we collect this data, and the way we sort of solved that to start was building an IoT product, right? And so that was kind of like the sort of genesis of VergeSense. Then over the years, we've improved our ability to collect that data, aggregate it, make it more and more useful. And then if you kind of look at where the company is now, again, we have that core of an IoT sensor-based product that can aggregate data about space. We've since expanded that to make our software platform agnostic to data source, so we can start integrating data from any modality, Wi-Fi data, badge data, so whatever data is available within a customer's environment. And now we're really starting to turbocharge that with LLMs and AI to augment and accelerate the ability to interrogate that data and then ultimately use it to drive, real decisions and outcomes for customers.
Yeah, the way I describe sort of like the current newest phase that we've gone into is being more opinionated. I think in the early stages, like with a sensing technology, we were just like collecting the data and almost sending it somewhere else. Then it was collecting the data and displaying some sort of objective analytics about it. Now I think we've gotten to the point where it's like we're experts enough with people like you guys, Izzy and Brad, that we should have an opinion. And now it's like our tools should actually like have an opinion about what should happen next, and not just present the data objectively and let you, the expert, the customer, do it. We also are an expert there in the room with you. Our software will actually help you, guide you along with other people to the right decision, and not just objectively present the data. So that's been the biggest one for me. That's sort of in progress, and I think we're making great progress there.
Yeah, we have this this old meme of it's in some of our sales decks of like the people, you're at the whiteboard and there's all these charts and there's all this confusion, right? And that was the state, I think, of this market for quite a while. It was cool, we have the ability to collect all this data and put it in a dashboard. And there's a million companies with a million different dashboards, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're in the business of solving real problems for customers, right? And then over the years, based on the experience of working really closely with customers, and over the past 24 months, really leaning into the latest available technology in terms of reporting and analyzing and providing recommendations based on data, we started to really translate that into digestible forms that people can consume and act on. We launched a product a couple months ago called Breakpoint Analyzer. It was something that was kind of on a whim. I wasn't really sure what the reception of that was going to be, but we were really surprised at how customers really leaned into that product. I mean, Kelby, I don't know if you want to add anything else on that VPA.
Yeah, no, I mean, so the reason that we're able to become experts, to kind of add on to all that, is the data set, right? We have some other people have this cross section of offices, right? There's a lot of consultative services that see as many customers as we do, but they never see it alongside the fidelity of data we have. And so we've sort of realized over time, as we built up this data set, this is a gold mine we're sitting on. We're sort of we're the only company in the world that has understanding down to room level how the offices of Earth function, right? And so it was can we provide a product that capitalizes on that advantage? Can we share that knowledge in a software format, and not just through Brad and Izzy as our sort of consultative people internally, and as kind of I think are really executing on that vision, is we've finally found a way to not just customer by customer have a solution for you and only show your data, but instead have a way to sort of present benchmarks and fill in the blanks with what we know about other places and other buildings, and what we have a broader view of just the industry in general that we share with all of our customers in a software package, instead of just PDF reports and people's. Yeah, it's exciting. Ask us about Breakpoint Analyzer. Sign up for it.
Yeah, I know we're going to get into in a minute here kind of some of the challenges in the market right now that led us to this. But one thing I've really loved working internally with the business on is this focus on not just providing a data point or not just providing a benchmark, right? But what is the actual job that our customers are trying to get done, and how do we get them there fastest, confidently, with cutting out a lot of time and a lot of, questioning of different data sources and all of that. So we'll get into more of it. But yeah, it's been a really fun evolution for us to see, and great to hear the story shared with all of our listeners too.
Is this a segue to the hot takes portion?
Let's go.
We need some planes coming down right now. It's getting hot in here. It's a little sweaty. But let's get into some hot takes and hard truths, and talk about some information that may be a little bit misleading in the market, if you guys are open to that. Where should we start? How do we feel about vendors overpromising? Kelby, I'm going to throw it to you.
I have a strong opinion on this one. Yeah, well, speaking of like early missteps, I think, or like pivot points or moments of illumination, if you will. Like, we are amongst competitors. Every company is amongst competitors, and oftentimes you have to present the capabilities of your product in a data sheet or some other format to other people, right, to your customers. And the tendency does, I think, tend to be to overpromise, but that's a very short-sighted thing. I think that's one thing we learned very early, is that like if you overpromise capabilities, this catches up to you very, 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 very quickly. And you win the sale and you get there and you have to go install your product and get it up online. And then your life is horrible because you have to like figure out how to make up for all the things that you promised but you couldn't deliver. I think early on we learned that lesson, and I think that's been an advantage of ours amongst our competitors, is that like we kind of learned that the less of that we do, the better. And so, especially when it comes to like the hard technology, the sensors and the sensing and the capabilities of it, I think, yeah, that was definitely a lesson.
Yeah, I just gotta say, like, it's been unfortunate in the industry over the years, right? Because yeah, it's a new market. There's new technologies. There's not an agreed upon sort of standard or best practice for solving these sort of occupancy measurement problem. There's a bunch of vendors who've come to the market with different approaches. And when we've seen a lot of folks, frankly, just kind of poison the well, right? Because they come in with huge promises. I personally know of multiple customers have invested tons of money, right, in vendors who ultimately couldn't deliver on their promises. And that just kind of poisons the well for everybody, right? It leaves a bad taste in the mouth of customers. They were promised the moon, and then folks couldn't come in and deliver against those expectations. And then on the vendor side, typically what we see, the common sort of failure pattern here is that, vendors will like focus on technical requirements and technical differentiation, like field of view or accuracy or coverage or this and that. There's all these like very, very technical things that they try and win a deal on. And sometimes that works. But ultimately, they sort of tended to forget that at the end of the day, we're all in the business of solving problems for customers. The technologies and implementation detail. At the end of the day, like customers just want a reliable quality solution that works at a particular cost point. They don't really care how you get there, what technology you've chosen. But because, a lot of vendors over the years have just sort of, for lack of a better, like sort of taken advantage of customers, it's really kind of pulled the industry back in multiple ways. I know multiple customers, because of a vendor selection they made, it was a bad implementation, poor delivery. They're out of the market for years, right? And now they're missing out on all the opportunity and potential that they would have if they had a reliable solution in place. So I think it's natural in sort of an emerging market like this, for this to happen. But it's also unfortunate because a lot of people have been disappointed. Our company, like we say all the time, we're not perfect, right? Like we haven't, like I'm not perfect in every single way, but we really do pride ourselves on delivering quality solution, reliable solution to customers, always following through on our promises and the expectations. And then it served us well over the years, but it's just too bad that, we've had so many poor implementations as well.
Well, yeah, one of the things that I think has been good for us as a company is the concept of trying to be more technology agnostic. We have multiple versions of our internal technology, right? Our like core sensor technology. There's a wired version and a wireless version. We have white labeled sensor devices as well. We have third-party data feeds that we ingest. There's Wi-Fi. There's all these different things. And when you don't have to like force the round peg into the square hole, when you can like find the square peg in your bag, there's a lot less, tendency to make your product seem like the appropriate solution to the problem that's being presented. I think that was big for us early on. We did even just as simple as like we have a wired product and we have a wireless product.
It's everyone has big point. Like people, like you'll have a vendor they'll be like, oh my God, VergeSense, like it's batteries. The batteries will eventually need to be replaced. Yes, that's true, but that's probably a lot better than spending, $500 to route a PoE cable in a building. You'll have another crop of vendors now who will be like, oh, there's hardware involved. Like there's hardware, like that's a terrible thing. It's like, yes, that's true. If you want the highest quality data feed, you're going to need a sensor-based solution. That's reality. Like the technology doesn't exist currently for any other alternative. If you don't need that, choose something else, right? Right. Like, there's a lot of options on the market, right? But Kelby, to your point, like a lot of vendors get very wedded in their own technology, and then again they lose sight of like, how do you solve the problem for the customer? What's the problem they're trying to solve? What's the appropriate technology implementation for that? And over the years, like we've really challenged our company to think that way, right? We're not wedded to any technology, right? We want to be experts in sort of what works best for a particular situation, a particular budget, particular use case, and then provide those options to customers and they can select. But ultimately, the technology is just in support of that larger mission, not the other way around.
Yeah, and like to your example, like, okay, if you don't like batteries but you want a wired product, okay, we offer one of those too. We were talking about it from a point of like, we understand it because we offer it. So anyway.
We have two very passionate co-founders here, just banging around some vendor noise, and I'm kind of curious. This is what it is, or this is what it sounds like, is that there's a lot of noise in the marketplace, right? And it becomes distracting and disorienting to our customers. What would you recommend, or what suggestions do you have for our customers or potential customers to kind of cut through some of this? And agnostic to VergeSense, just in general, like. What's a good way to potentially qualify, a data source like ourselves? Of course, we want you to come to VergeSense, but, just in general, how should our customers be thinking about this or approach this?
Yeah, it comes out of the same thing. Like just understand what problem you're trying to solve first. Really interrogate that. Like, what is the job to be done here? Like are you trying to solve understanding portfolio level utilization? How many people are coming into my building on a daily basis, right? You do not need a pinpoint expensive sensor solution for that. You're probably better off using something like Wi-Fi, an entryway sensor. Maybe badge data is good enough, in that building if you've got, turnstiles, et cetera. So really starting with the problem you're trying to solve. If on the other side of the equation, you're trying to get real-time room control, right? Real-time understanding, how many folks are in conference rooms, room release, all like high latency. Yeah, you probably need some sort of in-room unit that's going to identify the occupancy status of that room. It's going to integrate with your other software systems. So the other solutions won't be appropriate for you. What we find a lot in this market too is that there's this kind of intersection. There's this sort of like the real estate folks who really understand like their problem space and what they want to solve. Then there's also the IT folks on the other side of the house who are responsible for technology implementations. They're responsible for secure, like a bunch of other stuff, but they're not as intimately familiar with the actual problems that the real estate folks are trying to solve. And so we see sort of a lot of tension sometimes between those organizations where IT is trying to push a particular solution onto the real estate folks because it's easier for them. They've maybe already bought something from one of their other vendors, but it's ultimately not going to solve the problem that the real estate actual end users care about. It's going to move the needle for them. Really just start with problem. What am I trying to solve for? And then really interrogate your vendors and understand, do they understand, how their technology fits into your problem space? If they're coming in and pitching feature, technology, and kind of wet it in like their particular solution, probably not the right solution.
Yeah.
For you at the end of the day, right? So that's really what it boils down to. And I think if like everybody, like I want more folks in our industry, even like our direct competitors, to really sort of lean into this mentality because it will improve growth of the entire market, will improve the growth of the industry. What we've seen is that, because these folks over the years have overpromised, under-delivered, really get stuck in conversations about bits and bytes and technology implementation, it's almost in a way held the industry back because we're not really talking about the higher order problem space.
Yeah.
100% echo what you said. The only thing I would add is like, don't compare the numbers in the data sheet. And if you're getting to that point, there's some element of that, but like, if you get to that point, something's gone wrong in the process. If you're like, okay, which number is higher in this row on the data sheet?
Save the data sheet for later.
Something's gone wrong.
Everybody has a data sheet. It can go later. Start with the
Noted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things about working here at VergeSense is being able to have you two as our leaders. And the reason I say that is because you guys, you give Izzy and I a lot of credit for us being in the field quite often, but you're in the field just as much as we are. And you're speaking with our customers, boots on the ground, and have a real good understanding of what's happening in the workplace, especially in the industry right now. And I'm kind of curious, what do you think is the most overhyped workplace trend right now that we're seeing or hearing about?
Trends? Yeah, I don't know. The word agile is pretty tired. I'll say that. Word agile workplace. It, so
What does a static workplace look like, do you think?
well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like there's like everyone's
It's a
like, no one's like I want to design a very specific like focused office that like only does one thing rigidly anymore. And so like I think maybe what I'm getting at is that like this concept that a flexible office that supports multiple types of work and is appropriate to the new world is like some novel thing. Like that's like the baseline. That's not like something to achieve or like that doesn't put you ahead of the curve today. That like puts you at the minimum. Yeah. And so I think it's worth acknowledging that there is a new standard that everyone should be held to, and talking about characteristics of an office that is the standard as some like next gen thing is not really that impressive. We need like an office like 3.0 or something. We're on to the next gen. We need the next gen term.
Here's my view. It's a great question. I want to I'm sick of the hot takes about The Office because everybody has them, right? Everybody has a hot take about hybrid this and remote that, right? Like there's all these hot takes because it's like it's really engaging content because we all have like strong opinions about work from home versus remote versus hybrid. There's all these like real big opinions and hot takes. At the end of the day, like I think it's really simple. Every company will have a different expectation of how they expect their teams or people to show up, to work at that particular company. That's a choice that the company and the team members make together, and then vice versa. Team members, right? Like they all have choice as well. And the beauty of our now 5 years post-COVID remote world is that like there's a lot of options available, right? Like there's many, many different ways that companies work. Some companies are 5 days a week. That's great for them, right? It doesn't need to be this super controversial thing, right? Like that's an expectation that they've set with their employees. They have strong reasons to do that. That's cool. Some companies are 100% remote, right? Our company is very remote friendly, right? That works for us. It works great, right? And we find balance there. Some are hybrid, right? And so there's a tremendous amount of choice in the world, and that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. So I'm really sick of like the workplace hot takes, the amplifying content. Just stop, please, right? And then let's embrace.
Meanwhile, you're making a very hot take. We love.
I was going to say these hot takes
that we have, and then again, the beauty of it, and this is where technology fits into the equation, is that we now have tools that can operate in this chaotic environment, right? Where we don't have the predictable 5 days a week, 9 to 5, right? And so that's where new solutions like VergeSense and many others in the market, help fit in. And so I think that's an amazing opportunity for us to support the choice and the flexibility and the optionality that's available in the market, regardless of how a company wants to operate and work.
So
no
more hot takes.
Yeah.
I think this we feel this thing a lot in the startup world as well, which is like, here's what made me successful, therefore this is the only way to do it, right? And I think that's like the essence of a hot take, is like, here's something that works in this specific place or for this specific company or for this specific reason, and everyone thinks that because it worked once it works for everyone. But I could not possibly agree more that like it's not possible to have a single rigid framework that like this is the hottest take, and if you implement this, every employee is going to be 50% happier. It's like measure it, understand it, do the work to get your own internal hot take. Like, what's your company's hot take? You have a different one. Like, you gotta talk to your employees and like understand and measure it and understand what's going on. Like you have a specific hot take. Like the broad hot take probably doesn't apply to you.
I think that this is like also, you guys are really pulling on a signal, it's like of the market of this industry right now, where from like a historical perspective, there were a lot of generalities and assumptions and things kind of baked into how decisions were made. And we don't have to do it that way anymore. Like there's a better way, there's like an evolution that's happening right now.
Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. We talk all the time. Like there's all these consulting firms. I won't name names, but we all know what we're talking about, right? Who charge a ton of money for their expertise, right? And I'm not saying they're like completely useless, right? Like I'm sure they have provide some value, but the reality is that with the tools that we have today in 2025 with data acquisition, data analytics, we can be highly quantitative with the recommendations that customers are provided. And so if like you're paying somebody for their expertise and it's not truly backed by hard data, like you're overpaying. I'm sorry, like you're not getting value out of that, right? And like a lot of like the best tools that are available in the market are surveys or institutional knowledge. And the other bit of it is that like that knowledge now is like so outdated. Like we just talked about the pace of change in this industry right now, right? Like how can you possibly keep up with that? Over the past 3 years, the way people are working, will continue to work, is evolving really, really quickly. And so we do live, fortunately, in a world now in which these problems can be really attacked with data and quantitative decision making, and not just like anecdotes that are attached to some brand, right? And so I think that's a huge opportunity for the industry to overall reduce spend, be more efficient, and then provide more effective results for employees and employers.
I was just going to chime in with a quick fun fact. The VergeSense time period, the time period from today into the past for which our benchmark data is used, is 3 months. It's like, and it, like, yes, sometimes you have to account for some seasonality, but like to talk about how fast things are changing and how fast we sort of expect and need a benchmark to remain accurate, it's definitely not 10-year-old, rules of thumb and industry knowledge. This stuff is changing fast, and it's really important to like
100%.
have that thing that is providing insight be based on the most recent data.
Yeah. I mean, having that data, the accessibility to data and the quantity of data and the granularity, the quality, like all these things are there for the taking. They're there for us to be able to inform our decisions in such a more efficient and impactful way, and it impacts the business on the bottom line in incremental ways. Izzy, I know you're kind of itching here to bring up a topic that you enjoy. Do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, let's get into it. I was just going to say on the last topic, as a recovering workplace intelligence consultant, I couldn't agree more, right? Like my job, all of those many customer engagements that I did that were 6 months, sometimes 8 months, right? You're going through all these steps, and these types of tools will make life easier and more efficient for everyone, including the consultants. And so, yeah, I just, even having sat in those shoes, it's like spend your time being strategic instead of having to figure out how to, collate all this data and go through the months of setting up and then completing, the observational studies, all that stuff. So just had to throw in my hot take of former consultant. Couldn't agree more.
Recovery. Nice to have later, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
But yeah, let's transition into AI, right? We can't talk about prop tech, of current day prop tech, without talking about AI. I think, it's everywhere. And it's talked about, this is kind of a hot take and nit of mine, is how often people say just, are you using AI? And we all do it too, but what does that mean, right? Like that's like saying, do you use the internet? It's like, for what? I use the internet for what? Like I go on and I use a tool on the internet, or I use the internet to send an email. And so I think the more and more we can talk about AI and those specificities, it's going to become so much more powerful. But I'm curious, how are you two seeing AI get picked up by workplace and real estate, and how are we integrating it from that perspective? And then what are the challenges that everyone's facing right now, trying to integrate, trying to get AI as a partner, I guess, in our daily work?
Yeah, I'll maybe do a surprising take, and then Dan, I'll let you take the kind of current tape, talk LLMs maybe a little bit. But one thing that I think is a core, match between two concepts is like, if you have a lot of data, if you have a large variety of data from a lot of different sources that may not be perfectly clean, oftentimes the only solution to extract an insight from that data is some type of machine learning. And a lot of the like more quote unquote like traditional machine learning, it's funny now when you talk about like a neural network that's like, it's like ancient technology. It's like arrows and flints and stuff, but still super useful. And I think the same rule applies to sort of the LLM world, which is like, they're flexible algorithms that help you combine context from a lot of different places and give you some synthesis of that information. And one of the things that we've found a huge advantage in is we have a lot of data from a lot of different sources, from different sensors, from different third-party data sources, in different formats over different time periods with different quirks about them. And synthesizing that into a single benchmark, for example, a single thing that sort of represents the usage of the office, is a thing that's uniquely possible with a concept as flexible as machine learning. So like neural networks throughout our system are everywhere, right? They power our sensors, they power our benchmarks, they power our sort of insights. And that's, I don't even think I've like talked about even LLMs yet. So maybe Dan, I'll let you maybe take that one.
I'll try. Yeah. So we can obviously go for a long time with this. So first thing first, right? AI, right? Sort of new buzzword, et cetera. We have been an AI company since the beginning. It was before AI was cool, right? As Kelby mentioned, we're using, convolutional neural networks.
I was writing neural networks by hand back in the
Literally. Annotating his own data.
What is the drill? Didn't work.
All that stuff. True story, right? And at that time, it was basically to make our sensing technology work reliably, right? That was an emergent technology. Like convolutional neural networks were very new. It was sort of like computers started to learn how to process image data, right? And then we applied that domain, that sort of solution to sensing, et cetera, and we built it up over the years, right? So that was like the genesis of VergeSense in 2017, was doing that for the problem of just, how many people are in this room? That was a problem, we tried to solve. Then as that scaled up over the years and we have, 200 million square feet, all these different data sets, then the amount of that data started to become overwhelming for customers, right? Like, how do I sort of parse through all this? Again, we talked about the dashboard problem before. And the first product we launched in this domain was like basically a chatbot, right? A chatbot that you could use to query your data. And we're just talking about how consulting work will sort of evolve. I mean, both Brad and Izzy, have been daily active users, right, of our workplace assistant product for basically 2 years. Like, how do we sort of like turbocharge our ability to interrogate data, do reports, surface insights and actions that customers can take on it? And so that's been really cool, and that's been like the adoption sort of modality that we've seen. What we're really excited about next, and I'm going buzzword here, but is more agentic sort of things, right? And the sort of like, people get like really like spooked by this, right? It's like, oh my God, like the agents are going to take over everything. Like if you've used and the technology is getting better and will continue to get better, but like there still needs to be a human in the loop for any like important decision, right? What the AI, agentic stuff can do is it can do a lot of background work and then recommend something, to you proactively. But ultimately, to make good decisions, you need a human in the loop, right? And we've been designing software that adapts that modality for workplace applications, right? So if I'm doing maybe space planning or some other thing, designing kind of a completely new user interface that will have agentic workflows as kind of a first order design consideration, so that when you log in, you're not doing a bunch of like rote routine, data manipulation, et cetera. You're going in and saying like, okay, here is what, the VergeSense agentic system has identified as actions or recommendations or changes that I should consider making. Here's the assumptions, right? And then you as the workplace expert can ultimately drive that decision. Like people talk about this in the context of, coding, like, the sort of agentic coding systems. It's like having like an intern. You have like an intern that's working 24/7. They're always there. But ultimately, you need seasoned developers that will oversee that work, integrate it, maintain it, et cetera, right? And we think that's going to start to emerge in a big way within workplace when you sort of like unpack a lot of the things that folks are doing. And so we think there's a huge opportunity there. We think there's a ton of just overall spend that's going to be disrupted. And we talk about kind of like, a lot of these legacy sort of consulting businesses have a lot of sort of money in that category. Like, I think all that is going to completely transform. I think the challenge that you see is that real estate and workplace is just a very conservative industry, right? I mean, it's very conservative with respect to technology adoption, right? So I think the adoption is going to be, slow and moderate over time. It's not like there's going to be, the agents running everything overnight, but I do think this is an inevitable trend that we will continue to see.
Yeah, for sure. Are they? Well, Kelby, this is more so for you. Would you consider an agent very agile, or is that not?
Yeah, I've been like thinking about that word all the time. It's like, it's perfect to say it, but I'm not allowed to say it anymore.
Depends on how you build it.
Flexibility. Yeah.
Kelby's agent, not agile.
No, what were you going to say, Kelby?
No, I was just going to say one of the other takes I like that's how do you apply AI in the workplace is like, it's a little bit of like a power to the people kind of thing, where it's like you have some theory or thesis that you want to work out and you're the expert, right? You're like the domain expert, you're the workplace person. But like in order to do the work of solving that problem, you have to like enlist a data scientist and enlist 6 different data vendors to hook up their APIs to your system and get them all in a data lake. And then you got to get someone else to write the queries. And there's just like a lot of people that have to be pulled into the mix in order to like operate on some hypothesis. And I think that so much of that can be short circuited now. It's like just writing a complex Excel formula with ChatGPT. It's like that might shave off, so much time in the loop that it requires to actually get decisions done. Combining the data sources from 3 different sources with an agent, just have the agent like log into the 3 different systems and like do it for you instead of like waiting for the developers to hook stuff up. And like spoiler, as a developer, the developer doesn't want to be hooking up the APIs anyway. You're not like, you're not offending anyone, that you're taking away sort of the boring work. And I think then you free up the technical people to do a lot more interesting stuff. And you get the domain experts actually able to operate directly in sort of the technical world and hopefully pull out some of the insights themselves. So I think we're seeing a lot more of that. We're trying to enable that with our tools.
In my view too is that like, there's of course classic, there's two schools of thought. There's the boomers and the doomers on AI. I'm team boomer, right? Like my strong view, having used AI, I can't even tell you how many times a day, right? I'm on ChatGPT doing stuff, et cetera. Like this is another tool that will augment and accelerate every individual's ability to be productive, to do great things, right? It has high degree of agency, right? Like I am not team doomer at all. Like the companies that embrace AI will be more productive, more effective. They'll be able to accomplish more collectively because humans and our creativity and all the things that we can uniquely do are in the mix, in the middle of all that. And so, as your point earlier, it's like when people ask like, do you use AI? It's like, do you use the internet? Do you use video conferencing? Do you use like mobile phones? Like it's an incredibly powerful paradigm leap in technology. But ultimately, in my view, and in its current incarnation, we could get the AGI and the ASI, like that might be coming. I can't predict the future, but with the technology that's available now, this is clearly a massive productivity enhancer. And then like for individuals and organizations, the extent you can embrace it, you'll be able to accomplish a lot more than you could without it, right? In the same way that we can accomplish a lot more with Google and mobile phones and video conferencing and all the amazing technologies that have been created the last, 20 years.
Yeah, and I think with all of those technology enhancements, right, it puts more things in the individual's hands, but it's also important to talk about, what somebody might not be able to do as easily on their own, even if they have AI, right? So like, I might not need as much help integrating 3 data sources, but I might go to Kelby and be like, I don't really know a lot about, the way these are set up on that cloud over here. And like, what's the best way to do this, right? There's like a better way to do things and not. And so I love that, opportunity for the strategy, even around data, to kind of be in the room more, because I think anyone who has a technology company probably has done something in the past where they've set up data a certain way or set up a product a certain way, right? And you go back and you say, well, there might have been a better way to do that. It's hard to rebuild it. So I really love the opportunity there for more of the time to be spent on like, how do we strategically set up our technologies and our tools, and how do we focus on the way that they meet our customers' decisions that they're trying to make even better. We have unfortunately come to the end of our time. Dan, what's one parting piece of advice that you have for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. I think we're at the beginning of like a really amazing time in workplace, as I talked about earlier. Like the choice that's available in today's world for both employers and employees is really unparalleled, right? So there's an opportunity to kind of meet everybody exactly where they are, and so I couldn't be more excited to see how this industry evolves over the next 5, 10, 15 years, how our work, the way we work continues to evolve. And it's amazing that we now have so many options and tools and technologies that allow us to make sense of it. Over the course of 8 years here at VergeSense, we've seen multiple technology paradigms that come in. And, as an organization, we've always leaned into those, right? And then asked ourselves, how can we leverage those to better serve customers? And so I think for anybody in the industry, like, continue to be curious, to continue to explore and iterate. It's only going to allow you to be more effective and create more impactful organizations across the board.
It's a
Yeah,
good
that's
one.
fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Kelby, what are you most excited about with what you're working on right now? Is it maybe something with that large spatial model?
Large spatial models, baby. Yeah, let's go. I will say the goal with all of this, I think this is like the truth, is how do we take all of the things we've learned and provide them in a package that is a product to the customer? And we've been talking a lot about our space planning and our breakpoint analyzer and things like that as like the way we're solving a problem of planning your space. And we haven't focused so much in a lot of our marketing around like the engine that's powering it all. And that's something we're calling large spatial model. And the concept is we have all this benchmark data collected across Earth, just just the trends and how people tend to use offices if they're configured a certain way. And we've trained sort of this way to apply a benchmark to a floor plan, to whatever floor plan you have, even if you don't have a single sensor installed in it, any single source of measurement, we can look at that floor plan and whatever context you have and predict how we think that floor plan is going to be used. And so like that becomes a concrete starting point for any type of task you want to do. And then yes, if you have some special characteristic of the teams that are there, or the region you're in, or things like that, it might be necessary, and almost always is necessary, to measure elements of that to sort of augment this model that's predicting how your space is used to account for the unique aspects of your own workforce and region and building and all of that. But you can always do something, even if it's just with software. And so we're super excited about this concept of just like simulating the space, taking everything you've learned about how we think space will function. And if you say, I expect 150 people to be in the building at this time, we'll tell you, well, you have an 80% chance of running out of conference rooms, but a 10% chance of running out of desks, and really add this sort of like understanding of the problems that will happen, the breakpoints as we branded them, that will happen even if you don't have a single piece of measured data enabled by the large spatial model. So it's super exciting. I think it's sort of like a cool culmination of 8 years of what we've been doing as a company. It's like we've been building up this knowledge base, and now we're finally putting it into a form where we can share it with our customers.
Yeah, the large spatial model is incredible. My view on it is that it's basically occupancy data is reinforcement learning for space. If you really think about it, right? And so we have this feedback loop of our occupancy sensing that's sort of like RLing against the actual spaces themselves. And we now have it at a scale in which it's actually useful as a standalone thing in the large spatial model. You don't need sensors in a new space. You can actually predict how that space is going to behave. And I think the iterations on that as the scale continues to increase are going to be amazing. Customization based on the type of industry, the location, the way that folks want to work, et cetera. And so I think we're barely scratching the surface there. I go back to, I think we were talking earlier about the importance of data. Data always has very unexpected uses at the end of the day, right? You saw this with all of like the major like internet companies. Like why does Google have like the best possible video generation product? What is it called? Not Gemini. I'm ruining this. VO3, sorry, VO3. Yeah, VO3. So the Google generative, because they have YouTube, right? They've been able to train incredible performance models based against that data set. And now as we've seen like the occupancy data set really get to a certain level of scale, our ability to now have truly predictive models with high fidelity that have been trained against that aggregate data set is really incredible stuff, and completely unexpected, honestly, when we started the company back in 2017. So.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll kind of add to all that too is like, what have we always done as a company? We've prided ourselves in sort of like integrating it all together, right? It's like a full stack solution, and it's not like we're going to ship this large spatial model and like not do sensors anymore. It's all kind of mutually working together, and if you have data here, it makes the predictions that much better. But if you don't, it still works. And if you have complete coverage, you're going to get the best possible prediction, all that. So it's kind of exciting to see. It's like I like to think of it as another sensor. It's another way to like measure data. It's just that the data is like synthetic. And it just goes into the bag with all the other sensor data we have, and we give you the best possible prediction for all the
Kelby, I don't know if I'm picking up what you're putting down, but today you've referenced for right now on Earth. Are you suggesting that we might be expanding beyond Earth in what we're covering?
I would like to announce no. Second to Earth for now, as far as I know.
Okay. Fair enough.
Saving that for episode 5.
Yeah. We're waiting for the moon colony. We're waiting for Mars, right?
We're
They'll have
ready.
different, occupancy intelligence needs probably than us.
Yeah, Dan kept on talking about space too, and I have to go there. Like, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone in your team or send it to that one colleague who is always up for trying new stuff.
Thanks so much for being a part of our community of listeners. We'll be back soon with more conversations like this. Until then, keep experimenting, keep learning, keep working forward.